CanJam 2024. Man, this was a real pleasurable experience for me. I got to witness a lot of cool things and a lot of really just interesting items, and I got to meet a lot of cool people too. It was fun. Now, here's the thing. It's really tough for me to get to go to audio fests and audio events across the nation, like New York City, SoCal, Hong Kong, Canada. That makes it even tougher. But when I heard that CanJam was coming to Dallas right here in my backyard, how could I not go? I had to show up. It's like 20 minutes away from me. I have no excuse. And boy, am I glad I did. So let's talk a little about what I saw. You walk right into the Marriott Quorum and you get to witness Schiit Audio's booth to the left of you. Very, very nice selection of products that they had there. And it was really fun. I had a really, really fun experience. That being said, they weren't on display or anything. You couldn't play music through them or connect to your gear, nothing like that. But they did have a pair of speakers there with, Schiit gear attached to them to make them do their thing. And it was, very great quality. Now, I did walk into the main foyer, the main lobby, if you will. And first thing I did was walk over to Lin Sol's booth. Now, he was very kind. He did let me try out the HiFiMAN Susvara and the Susvara Unveiled, Susvara. And these headphones, alright, here's the thing. This is not a full-on review. I'll still have to get them in to completely check them out, see what they're like, stuff like that. But what I can say is that the Susvara Unveiled is remarkably smoother, especially in the treble, as opposed to the Susvara OGs. Now, I personally enjoyed the sound signature of the Susvaras a little better. However, I cannot deny that the Unveiled are simply the more refined headphone here. They're flat out the better headphone in terms of technicalities and quality. So I do remember the Unveiled Susvaras being a touch bit above neutral when it comes to the treble. Just a mild touch, as opposed to the Susvaras Unveiled that was slightly more elevated. But overall, I really enjoyed the two headphones. I'd be happy with either one of them, to be quite honest with you. Now, I did also get to try out the Sennheiser HD520S's, the new close-back headphones that retail for about $350, and they were pretty good. I mean, they weren't perfect. They had a very solid, very acceptable bass response. Treble was great. It was a little more on the neutral, perhaps slightly darkish side, if I recall correctly. But it wasn't so dark that it just hides everything. Like, it was very, very acceptable. However, there was a point in the mids where these headphones got a tad too shouty, and I find that Sennheiser's headphones just kind of suffer from that flat across the board when it comes to their closed back selections. I remember I tried the, what were they called? The HD598Cs a long time ago, back in like 2018. And I felt the same way. Like, man, these are amazing, except that one little point at I think the 1K mark where it was just a bit too shouty. I needed to turn it down a bit. These thankfully were not that bad. They were actually more controlled when it comes to that shoutiness, but it was still there. Now, I did get to try out the Audeze MM500s, the Mani Marroquin edition, and I gotta say, I was not impressed. I really wasn't. The sound overall, like, I'm not talking about them being neutral. I'm talking about them being canned and sterile. It was not a very enjoyable experience whatsoever for me. I was just listening through music to these, and bass was present, but not special. Mids were present, nothing crazy. Treble was, I think, slightly on the darker side, and still nothing special. So, I really have nothing amazing to say about the MM500s, except, okay, they exist. They're there. And then I also got to try the Audeze CRBN2s, the new Ribbon headphones from Audeze. I'm sorry, man, but they just weren't there for me. They weren't there. They had a very canned response, and again, just sounded very sterile, just Just very flaccid. Bass had no juice to it, no texture. Mids, they were there, nothing special. Treble, again, just there, nothing special, just is what it is. I did get to try out DMS, his new Project Omega headphones. And I gotta say, overall, man, I was pretty impressed. Those things are very, very good. They have excellent capabilities. The bass, very, well, I wouldn't say very. It was thick, well textured, good amount of it, nothing crazy. On the neutral to slightly above neutral side. Treble, same thing. Decent amount of brightness, great retrieval, nothing special per se, but it was very nice to enjoy as well. The mids, however, was where shouldn't say that word. Stuff started to get a bit sus. So DMS himself, actually, I got to speak to him like, hey man, thanks for coming. Welcome to Dallas. Stuff like that. And we were talking for a bit, and he did show me the graph, right? The graph for the Omegas. And he showed me that there was a little peak in the 1K point and a peak in the 4K point. He said, you know what? You're feeling that little bit of awkwardness, a little bit of shoutiness in something like the vocals and that mid-range area. This is probably the culprit. And yeah, I would say I definitely agree. There was something there. There was just not a deal breaker. But it was a tad too shouty for my tastes. I'll be completely honest, D, like I'm sorry, but I would not buy the Project Omega headphones for my collection as they are right now because of that detail. For me, it was a deal breaker, but some people may prefer the shoutiness. Who's to know? Who's to say? Now you may notice behind me right here, I got the headphone 2. I've got the headphone 2 in for review, and yes, upcoming review expected really, really soon. It's going to be a very interesting one. But what I'm trying to say is when I went to CanJam, I actually got the chance to listen to the Headphone 2 GT edition. And without giving too much away from this individual review, I am going to say that the GTs had a little more treble presence, just a little more sparkle, a little bit of shine in that presentation, as opposed to the Headphone 2 that has a definitely much more neutral, flat experience. So your mileage may vary as to whether you like one or the other or what it is you're going to use them for, but just something to note there. I will say on the flip side, I personally felt that the bass response on the Headphone 2 was a little just better, just had more texture, more definition, volume. I could, give or take a little bit in the mid bass area, but it's nothing crazy. But overall, I would say that the bass on the headphones 2 was a little better than the 2 GT for me. Now, let's talk about something fun here. We also had a Sennheiser booth at CanJam, and guess what? I actually got to try the Sennheiser HE-1s. The top of the line, the peak of the mountain, the cream of the crop, the tip of the... No, I shouldn't say that. The best of the best that the audio world has to offer in terms of headphones. They had a quiet room set up, and I thankfully got a good amount of listening time at the booth so that I could, report my experiences on video and get to share them with all of you. So I'm going to say this. You buy the HE-1s, you're done. That's it. You're at the summit. You don't need anything else anymore. You are finished with the hobby. You got them. You're going to enjoy them for as long as you live. You're never going to want any other headphone ever again. This is the end. You're done. You crossed the finish line. The bass response, just enough to make it a very pleasant, enjoyable experience, entertaining experience, but not too much to make it muddy or loose or just thick and tubby. There were certain tracks that I got to try, and again, I got a good amount of time with these, so I got a lot of different tracks that I used to test this. It has a bass response like nothing else I've ever heard. So not only is it very present and very deep, it also has this unique texture to it that I've never ever heard from a headphone before. It has this grittiness to it, like a a very gravelly, gritty texture that just is so beautiful. It's so ethereal that you gotta experience it for yourself, man. Mids, very present, just enough mids to help you enjoy vocals, and the clarity of it, very, very detailed, amazing. Treble, a little bit on the bright side, but not in a bright way. It's just shy, very, very shy above neutral, and it had great extension, air, had just such an amazing quality to it, but it never got too sharp. It never got too aggressive. It never made me want to turn down the volume because, oh, this particular track is too hot. And I even got to try, things like Bangarang by Skrillex. And no, it was always like hot but on the good side, just the right amount of spice. Then right after that, I went over to Raal's booth and I got to try their 1995 dual ribbon headphone. I forgot the name of it. I'll post it here in a bit. But I didn't get a chance to try the triple ribbon just because it was being used and we were getting right around the cutoff at 6 p.m. But I didn't even have to. Like the dual ribbon setup was fantastic as it stands already. I mean, those particular headphones, like, they had plenty of bass, plenty of treble, plenty of mids, very lively and energetic, but never too aggressive. The treble was just the right amount of hot. The cymbals had just the right amount of sizzle to them that you wanted to hear, but not too much. The bass, very well textured, very, very juicy, and just, again, not bloated, not warm, not muddy, just great texture to it. I remember thinking to myself, like, okay, well, these definitely aren't HE-1 prices, so maybe I'll buy myself a pair. How much are these? Then I came home, saw that they were 10 grand. I'm gonna keep looking. But hey, they're there, if you've got money, but you don't got HE-1 money, I'm very certain that you can buy those headphones and never want another headphone in your life again. Like, that's end game as well, without spending HE-1 money. Now, I did actually get to see one of the seminars. I got to see Tal from Deconi Audio give us a seminar about the history of the phonograph. All the way to the 1800s, I believe it was 1871, 73, I can't remember, when the first bit of music was ever recorded, when it was actually captured. All the way up to, he went up to like the 1930s, I believe, 1940s, when in 1925, the first carbon microphone was invented and people switched over to electricity as opposed to mechanical audio. And, well, the rest of that is history. You had major groups doing multi-track testing. We also went over that. Thank you, Tal, for that particular experience. I learned a lot, and it was very, very enjoyable, very entertaining. And the last thing I did before I left the convention, I went back to DMS, told him, hey, Doug, man, thanks for being a good dude. Thanks for being very chill about it. And it was a pleasure to meet you. And that's basically it. So you know what? This particular experience I had kind of opened my eyes and made me realize how cool the conventions can really be. And made me realize that, you know what, they're worth the sacrifice. It's a good idea to just try to do my best and pop into at least the domestic ones here, maybe in New York City or SoCal, something like that. So I think next convention, you might see me there at some point. And of course, I'll update it on my social media so you guys can figure that out. And yeah, that's really all I have to say about it. It was an awesome experience right in my backyard. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.